Take it from the top,
2 minutes
everybody.
up. It's good to see you again, Chuck.
Yes.
Hello, Chuck Tingle. How are you doing? Nice to see you
Good.
again.
Not good. Good to see you too.
Thanks again for your time. Always a pleasure to speak to you, and thanks again for such a fantastic read. Every single book just blows me away. Really do.
Oh, well, hey, it's my pleasure.
Uh-huh. So I mean, to kind of to kind of introduce the book, this one it felt very Chuck Tingle, but it also felt very different this time around. I mean, the previous ones felt very much kind of very. This one's still high concept, but it felt kind of like the previous work was kind of very high concept, very mind melting, existential centric novels, whereas this felt like it had hints of that, but at the same time, it was very much like a midnight movie. Yeah, you just vanished all of a sudden. Yeah.
Okay, I think you know what? I was getting some like lag and some stuff. I just turned some things off. I think we'll be
Okay.
good.
Okay.
I hope
Yeah.
you didn't get too far into the question. It was the first question. Started from take it from the top,
2 minutes
everybody.
up. It's good to see you again, Chuck.
Yes.
So no, basically, I was saying that compared to your previous work, this one, while your previous work kind of felt very much existential dread, and also kind of it got quite philosophical about why we exist and why we even exist. Yeah. Whereas this one felt very much more a kind of it has some of those sensibilities, but at the same time, it felt very much more like a midnight movie in a way. Was that what you were aiming for?
You know what? You never know where the balance is going to land, right? You have your target. I think of it like, I mean, yeah, let's say you're shooting an arrow at a target. We all kind of know as we create things as an author, like, okay, what do I have like a, do I tilt to the left? Do I tilt to the right? And so we kind of like move our shot a bit. But there's only so much you can do when it actually comes out of you. You're just aiming and then you see where it
Yeah.
lands. Um, I I always shoot at to the same spot.
Right.
And I think that between Camp Damascus, Bury Your Gaze, Lucky Day, it all the points on the target that it lands, I think are just kind of like that's my vicinity. I know that if I write something when it comes out of my soul, it's going to end up there. And so Fabulous Bodies is just, uh, I let it rip and it landed where it landed. I feel like it tonally landed similar to Bury Your Gaze. I think if people
Right.
read my stuff and they're like, okay, I like Bury Your Gaze, I think that Fabulous Bodies is a pretty good comparison. I think you're gonna like Fabulous Bodies.
Yeah, I don't like comparing it too much to other things, but it kind of felt for me like the film Collateral with Tom Cruise. You know, the one where he's in the back of a taxi, by
Yes.
way of like 80s movies like The Hidden or The Serpent and the Rainbow, with a little hint of weapons. Without, I won't explain why it reminded me of weapons because that kind of give it away a bit. But it kind of
Yeah.
would you appreciate that
Oh yeah.
assessment?
Well, so
Yeah.
I will say not only very astute, I will give you a compliment on that because literally the genesis, there are two things when I write my books. There's like a feeling I want to tackle, and then kind of the idea that's more of like the high concept. What actually is it? And generally when I write a book, it's when those two things mash together in a way that's exciting. But the as far as like the high concept, like what is this story? What's the one sentence pitch? The idea that I had was, what if I did Collateral with a monster? So it was actually
Really?
directly, yeah, it was directly related because I love that movie. And I thought, oh, that's such a I love that it's a bit of like a bottle movie, it's like this little, it's all in this space. And what I really like about that, what's hard with horror, is that to have like an interesting villain in horror, you don't get much like dialogue with the villain because a lot of the time for it to be scary, they have to be so powerful
Yeah.
that like they're this threat, and so even being around them is a little too dangerous if you're writing first person present to have like a really in-depth villain. And I knew with this one, I was like, I want to write a villain that's like just really like a strong character, because some of my other books they have villains, but it's like the concept is what's scary. The idea, there's monsters, they're not necessarily speaking. I was like, I want to
Yeah.
write a villain. And so I thought Collateral, and I thought I would love to do like that kind of like bottle thing, but have it be a monster instead of a hitman. And it kind of took off from there, but that was the initial genesis. So
Yeah,
you
no,
are right on.
really got those vibes from there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And at the same time, whilst uh, the kind of the a lot of the feel was kind of like 80s midnight movie type things mixed with that like collateral that you mentioned. At the same time, it tackles really kind of parts of the zeitgeist, especially kind of social media, Instagram, those kind of things. Was it easy to juggle those two things to kind of make them blend seamlessly?
I honestly like I think again that is that's just what comes out of me. It is not like I think you are correct in saying that it does juggle those things. And it's so funny because I'll see reviews, they're like, how does Chuck do it? Balancing the humor and the gore or the camp and the seriousness and all this stuff, um, as if I'm like a surgeon kind of going
Right.
through and doing it. I think I do it efficiently like a surgeon, I guess, but my process is just I have that bullseye and I shoot at it, and like this is an unfiltered version of what my taste is, what just comes out of me. So as much as I plan the plot beats and everything, the tone, that's just kind of like what I like. That's just my aesthetic, which is kind of like I was saying, why I think it kind of hits barrier gaze. I think if I pull back that arrow and my technique is perfect and I release it just right, I think it's going to feel like Bury Your Gaze or Fabulous Wise is like kind of the perfect like okay, everything in the soup of my creativity when it's all balanced. It's got the sweet, savory, sour, like it's as it should be. So I
Yeah.
think if I hit the mark, it's like that. But it is not. The tone is not a conscious choice so much as the plot is, but the tone is just what comes out of me. And you are right to mention those movies because you're right. Collateral is a bit of a throwback to that. I think that it's hard to talk too much without too big of spoilers, but like there's a big change in this that is definitely it kind of becomes aliens a little bit with like Ripley a little
Right.
bit
Okay.
near the there's just like a certain thing of that sort of like 80s horror almost like horror action thing of like the evolution of like what that type of hero is something I was going for.
Right.
But yeah, no, you're right, those tones are there. I don't know how much I think about it.
Yeah. So I mean, I mean, you mentioned the aliens. There's a little bit of aliens in there, with Ripley as kind of the protagonist. Here we have Poppy.
Yeah.
So I'm quite curious, what was it specifically about Poppy that made her the ideal protagonist for this story? Who kind of, without giving anything away too much, it kind of goes through this journey of hypocrisy and denial, and kind of addresses those two things on this
Is
journey that she goes through.
when I'm planning these things, there is a bit of a because I do plan so much. There's a bit of a chicken and the egg of like who comes first, like the villain, like the antagonist or the protagonist, whatever. In general, the advice is you want to create a character that is like the most who's going to show this transformation the most, like who can exhibit these ideas the most. And so Poppy and Eddie came about at the same time, like I said, in a sort of chicken and the egg, like as they were evolving together. And there were a couple of things that I knew. One, as far as the feelings inside of me, I'm incredibly vain. I work through something with every book. The mask is great for me because when I take photos without it, I'm always I look at photos and I get so obsessive, and it is
Right.
an issue that I have is vanity. And the mask is really helping with that because I can just, I just don't think about it. And so I think tackling my own vanity was part of that character. And then ultimately, and this this is okay to give away because it is a little cryptic. People will maybe be interested before they read it, and if you've read, you understand. But that both Poppy and Eddie are influencers, in their own way,
Right.
symbolically. Like there's a lot that you can pull out from that, but essentially the question of what is an influencer? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Is exemplified by Poppy, I think,
Hmm.
and Eddie together.
Uh-huh. I'm glad you mentioned the wearing the mask there. I mean, the fact that you wear a mask to do your interviews and kind of in public, that really must kind of bleed into the way that you write your story because I don't want to give anything away, of course, but these two people behind the masks that they've created for themselves, there's so much there. So I'm
Yes.
quite curious, what was kind of the genesis of what you wanted? What was the spark that you wanted to kind of the spark for the story you wanted to tell of what it's like to live behind a mask, especially kind of not today now in today's age where everyone hides behind their Instagram mask or whatever you
Yes.
will.
Well, there's certainly an element of um, how much of a mask helps you be more honest, and how much does it help you cover it up. That's something that I've dealt with forever. When I was first publishing and stuff, I was really afraid because I loved this space that I created. It was a sacred space, it still is, but I was afraid of ever breaking the boundaries of that
Right.
space. And so I put up so much metaphor and mask and everything, and I did as much revealing of myself as I could, but I was still terrified of that. And now, as time has evolved, I am basically razor's edge. I am pretty much just myself, and I always was myself. But I should say I am much just no metaphor anymore. I've stripped away as much metaphor as I possibly can. So I am aware that there's multiple ways that a mask can help you express your art, and that there's multiple people who have used that in different ways. The mask of celebrity, the power of celebrity. I mean, that's another one. So Eddie is kind of an example that, like we all know, we see these artists or these people we admire and find out that they're monsters. You know what I mean? So there is an interesting thing when you have a mask of, you have so much honesty, but you can also hide some really sinister stuff.
No, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So so talking of Eddie as well, I don't, you mentioned him slightly before, but I don't want to give too much away. But I think it's okay to say that he's kind of like the American version of Elton John. We can say that, no?
Oh yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. Yes.
So I'm quite curious why you took that kind of era of superstar as the protagonist, as the antagonist. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because Eddie's a lot of things. Um, and yes, kind of an American Elton John, but his personality, I really think Eddie is kind of like the evil Chuck Tingle. Eddie is kind of me. If I'm going to be perfectly
Is there any
honest,
evil Chuck Tingle? Does he exist?
yes, it's really and I knew this, I would always just laugh as I was writing it because I was like, yeah, this is taking some of my worst qualities, I think, or even some of my good qualities, and like cranking them in kind of a destructive way. And so yeah, Eddie is just, yeah, he's a version of me because he is, I think that I am obsessive about my art. I think my autism makes me obsessive about not just my art, but art in general, art theory,
Right.
the boundaries of art, performance art. And I think that that can be as beautiful as it is and as intoxicating as it is to dedicate yourself and your brain and your thoughts to creating all the time. It can be really dangerous if that is kind of your only linchpin
Yeah.
to hold on to. And so I did think, like, okay, what if that part of me was really out of balance? And so Eddie is actually very much the evil Chuck in a lot of ways, very Elton John. And then, as far as like why he is so tied to that era, I think there's another dichotomy going on with this book about um old celebrity versus new celebrity. What is, Poppy is like the new era of fame, and Eddie is the older era of fame. And there's, a lot of things you can just talk about the way time evolves. So about the way older people look at younger people and the way that they consume art. So it's just, I like that dichotomy of that. I will also say, interestingly enough, in the very early stages, Eddie was a slightly different character, and the book just wasn't working. It actually was kind of close to me not writing it, because originally I envisioned a sort of like a more of a witchy sort of like Stevie Nicks kind of
Right.
character
Mm-hmm.
that would have been a little more like it's still 70s rock, but like a little more groovy and, like I said, like witchy and kind of feminine. And I was talking to a bud of mine, and I was like, gosh, I just can't figure this out. Like the character, it just doesn't work. It doesn't do what I think it can do. Like when I was plotting everything out, and I was like, there's just something that's not happening. And she's like, oh, you should make it a man. And I was like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah, men in power. There's so much more you can say there with that, I think.
Right.
And also just like sort of the what is it? There's just something there if you switch it to a sort of flashy Elton John thing that just makes it's more fun. I love Stevie Nicks. I'm not complaining about that at all. Fleetwood Mac's
No, it
one of
just
my
didn't work for the
favorite bands
story.
of all
Yeah.
time. Yeah, it just didn't. There's like an energy that when I tapped into that sort of like queer lineage of like those I mean, even, gosh, who's another example? There's a lot of that. I mean, Freddie Mercury, even George Michael, that type of thing. There is this sort of a queer icon that there was something there. And the second that she said that, I was like, oh, that's it. That's the story right there.
Uh-huh. And then from there, was it easy to create this invented superstar, and also the songs that go along with him?
Yes, because like I said, it's like, I don't know. I'll probably be talking about this book a lot and admitting this, but Eddie is very much similar to me. And
Right.
so it was embarrassingly easy to tap into for such an awful buckaroo, because he's like not a good person. Neither of the characters are good people, and so it was very easy for me to tap in. You know what I think it is? I think it's that uh unlike most authors, I am a performer. A lot of authors, it's a very solitary art form. You write, and I have a bunch of author buds who hate going on book tours and things like that.
Right.
My book tours are different. It's literally a one-man show. We rent out theaters. I don't do readings. I do like a performance. And so I think performers, unlike any other art form, understand this sort of feeling um, when you are in the green room, when you're backstage in the wings and you are about to go on. There is a mentality. There's another mask, I think, that takes over,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I know that because I have, been, outside of this mask. I've admitted this and talked about it, that I may or may not be known in other artistic fields, and I know what it feels like to perform. And that is essentially, Eddie is like, you just tap into that and crank it up.
I completely understand you because I do interview bands and artists sometimes,
Oh,
and,
yes,
and
yes,
they often say that they a lot of the times the person on stage isn't them at all. And when they come off
yes.
stage, half the time they can't even remember it, not because of drugs or drinking, but they just because they put on this mask and became this artist.
Absolutely. And it's there with music, it's there with acting, in the sense of like everyone, if you're going to shoot a scene, everyone is like, oh, I'm not that person, right? I'm an actor. I don't, but there is always a certain degree of transformation and a certain degree of like giving yourself over, whether you want to think of it as spiritual or not, but giving yourself over like to the art. And I think maybe why I connect so much with Eddie and say that he's an exaggerating is because I think if I was to have any sort of religious affiliation, which I don't, I am agnostic, but it would be about the somehow related to the transformative power of art, to giving yourself, like, there is absolutely something that I have felt. I think a lot of artists have felt, and I think a lot of readers and listeners and watchers have felt, that is transformative through art in a spiritual way. And so I think that I'm a little nutty in the way that I talk about it. I can recognize it. And then I think Eddie is even more nutty. Eddie takes everything that I believe and is like, I would kill for that. Eddie and me kind of like truly believe to different degrees that there is a sort of, like I said, like a spiritual elevation through this process of
Yeah.
performance.
I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, that was one of my later questions, because the novel raises kind of this tension between artistic transcendence and moral corruption as well.
Yes.
Um, so, do you think great art can emerge from this kind of these destructive or chaotic impulses that we get, or would you say that the book is kind of more skeptical of the modern tendency to romanticize damaged artists?
Yeah, I think that it is, like, personally, I'm a pretty good example of the opposite of that. I have had a great life. I do not have, a bunch of trauma that I'm working through. Like, I am very well adjusted, and am pretty much on the high end of happy to like blissed out with joy and gratitude every single day. There is very little dark me. Uh, I think that I make good art, if I'm going to pat myself on the back. Like, I'm
Mhm.
happy with the books that I make. And I also think that there are some very tortured souls who made some incredibly beautiful art.
Yep.
So I just don't think that anyone is necessarily better than the next. But I think there's some people that will say either way, like, like, art is only made from a place of absolute like health, and some people say art is only made in a place of absolute like destruction and despair. And I would say that neither of those is, well, I would say both of those is true. It is, art can come from any, there's art. Some of my favorite art is disconnected. It is beautiful in its utilitarianism. Talking Heads, one of my favorite
Right.
bands ever. Very lyrically, a sort of disconnected exploration of the human experience. That's like their whole thing is showing a sort of like bird's eye view, like an alien watching humanity. Very, and to me that's so powerful, that's beautiful, but I don't think that they're coming from like, as like that place of like rawness, like other artists are. And that's what I love about them. So I don't necessarily think there's any way that you have to approach it. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm guessing you don't go full, because you're in this happy place most of the time. You don't go like an actor, full method, and kind of go find this raw place or try and put yourself in situations that will help you to write more rawer material.
I mean, theoretically, you could look at this and you could maybe say that I am in a constant state of full method. You would have to talk to a
Yeah.
you would have to talk to a therapist about that. I am not entirely sure. Um, and it's hard to find the language here because all of this stuff is raw. I don't want to say that it's not. That joy is is just as raw. um I just think that there's it doesn't have to be that way. Now, I will also add that I have experienced, there's this kind of thing of like the sort of artistic, let's say the director or the producer or the book editor, the sort of like guiding force for an artist who is a little strange. There's kind of that idea. I mean, a great one that people talk about is like someone like Rick Rubin, right? Who it's like a band would go there and the experience is just very unusual, and you kind of enter this metaphysical place. It's so funny because people kind of like to talk trash on superhero movies, but I even watched a video of James Gunn talking to the actor that played Superman in the new movie, and their process of arguing about like the emotion of a scene, and you can see like when it clicks and when both of them talk about what the character wants, and it's like it is so beautiful that it almost just knocks me over backwards. And I will also say I have experienced that. I have worked with uh, sort of that level of creator that some buckers would know, where the entire experience is uh, kind of on another level of it's bizarre, it's a little grueling, it's a little, emotions get big, that kind of like really strange and wild thing. And without a doubt, those are the best experiences of my life. That is the closest to what you could call God that I have ever felt, is in those moments where I think someone who's not in the creative field or the outsider would look at that and think, wait, these people are just arguing. Or is this a fight? Or is this, but that is like really, there is some beautiful art that can come from that. So again, I don't know if it's joy or sadness or conflict or what, but there is something about the process that is almost indescribable.
By extension of that, I mean, you said earlier that you consider yourself a performer. Um, is that the same? Do you apply the same approach when you're writing? Do you kind of have the kind of moments you just described? They're on another level. When you're writing, you kind of speaking to your writing self, if you will, and you're just like,
Yes,
"We've got it.
yes,
This is
yeah.
it. We're on the right plane here."
That's a great question, because the examples that I've given, right, have been collaborative. Like
Yeah,
I'm kind of talking about when you work with other people. What's exciting about writing is that you get to do that with yourself. And I think
yeah,
when that happens is through editing. So you'll be writing and you kind of write the story, and there's things you can tap into, emotions, moments you draw, you are connecting to the infinite. And then you finish your draft, and then it sits for a couple of days, and then you go back and you've forgotten what you wrote. And then you get to go to the beginning, and then suddenly you're having a conversation through time with yourself, and you're having that experience of like the actor and the director arguing about the character take, and then the director loses it, and then all this stuff, and then they come back and it's this thing, and like you do that with yourself, and it is incredible, it is
mhm,
transcendent. But you have, instead of arguing with another person, you are having a conversation with yourself through time, which is very interesting. It's such a neat art form in that way.
mhm. And just but I mean, being able to sit down with yourself. I guess I mean it must be like on a film set or in a play or something. The director must have some really irate and furious conversations with himself. In your case here, how do you get on with yourself when you have to sit on your own for a
Yeah,
long chunks of time to come up with this art that you want to create?
Well, fortunately, I love myself. I think I'm great. So the conversations with myself do go a little, there's a little less friction, and it's mostly me typing, and then I'll get to a point and I'll realize kind of what I've done, or like, oh, this plane was landed in a way I didn't recognize. And then I'm just laughing to myself. I go, you're so clever. Look at you. What did you do here? So there's like it's a little more complimentary when it's just me.
That's great. So I want to go back to Poppy again. A little bit like this, actually. By extension, would you say that Poppy ever really, and I don't want to give anything away, obviously, but Poppy, she goes on this journey with Eddie. Um, but would you say that she ever really fully understands that Eddie and her very much reflections of each other? Or was it her kind of her inability to recognize that maybe she's a mirror image of Eddie in certain ways that is kind of the tragedy of her story?
I think honestly that's the journey of the whole book. So I can't necessarily, without giving anything away, I can't necessarily say if she accomplishes it, but yeah, I think from the moment they meet, this is a story of how much can this pretty pretty bad character, like she's a pretty terrible person, how much can this person in a very short amount of time recognize that in themselves and then make a change, I think is kind of like the crux of the character, and kind of where the story is. That's the tension of everything, is this person going to evolve in this one crazy night in the way that they need to.
Uh-huh. And it did also over the course of the novel, Poppy, she seems to be kind of very. She moves from being completely absorbed towards kind of being appreciated by people, their lives and humanity. I'm quite curious if you were intentionally using her arc as kind of a critique of either influence or culture, or the way that fame can actually reduce others to objects or contents. In this case, we talk about cadavers a lot.
Yes. Yeah, I mean it's gosh, it is all here's about speaking of those moments and you're like, oh, I've really done it. Something I'm proud of this book is everything that you're saying. I'm like, yes, and it symbolically happens in so many different ways. It
Mm-hmm.
happens on the level of social media and in influence. It happens on the level of what is a body worth? What is a person worth in this age of creating endless content? What does that turn people into, if they are just a post? And so there is certainly the question of that, and there is certainly the relation to that as far as like a body, a physical form, a digital form. I don't know. Is what actually are we? Are we the art that we make? Are we our digital footprint when we're gone?
Yeah.
Is all that's going to be left is all the posts that we made
And that's
online?
going to be
Because
questionable with AI. We're going to leave a
yes,
somewhat completely digital
that's
footprint
even
that isn't
that's even
actually ours either.
stranger. That is
Yeah.
even stranger to think, because at least the digital graveyard that we leave behind now are posts and things that we curated ourselves.
Yeah.
When we're gone, our Instagram will sit there, and our children, as wild as this sounds, will go on it, and they'll say, oh, look, I can see what my parents, what they were up to. Like that's
Yeah.
going to be the case. It already is the case. And as there's something kind of like sad about that, but there's also something kind of sweet about it. There's like, is the digital graveyard any worse? I don't know. But the
Yeah.
the
No, I mean,
thing
I know
that
what
I
you mean because no, sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say that
no,
when I was reading the book, it really did make me think that there's a certain moments of my life when I was younger that I would have loved to have had a telephone with a camera and all those kind of things to have the
yes,
memories fresh in my memory, which is something that the book really does deal with. about memories.
Yes, yes. And it's like, as with all things in life, there's just a balance. It's not like, one necessarily like side or the other, because now with AI, we're not going to control what that graveyard looks like. It already
Yeah.
doesn't have. That's what Bury Your Gaze is about. I wrote a whole book about this. Is that graveyard is going to be. It's very easy for someone to just take a photo, take a
Manipulate it
still
all.
from an old show, and create an entirely new, whip together their little ending that they wanted, or a new episode, or all these things. Now, the quality of those is, wouldn't even say debatable. It's pretty terrible.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that it's not happening. And so it is interesting to think that these things that we leave behind, like what even are we anymore? Are we
Yeah.
the body? Are we the soul? Are we our digital footprint? Or are we the thing that someone made out of our digital footprint 50 years from now that we don't even know about?
Mhm.
There's a lot of
No,
questions there.
it's a bit frightening, yeah, because I mean, I'm of a certain age now, but my kids certainly are led a lot more into AI temptation than we ever were, because it didn't exist. And it's very frightening because, like, my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter will wake up in the morning, and if she doesn't know what to do on a Saturday, she'll look at Chat GPT, and I don't know how to handle those kind of things. I really don't. I just cannot stand it.
It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a big journey for this generation, right? And I am an eternal optimist, it seems like, and I do think that the Buckaroos will figure it out, actually. But it is scary. And I think that a lot of I think the journey that Poppy goes on, and what I was trying to say with this book, is that if we don't know what all of this is, I think that a great way to hedge your bets is to have respect for all of it. To say, you know what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's a soul or not. Um, I can still have reverence for other people, for these things. Like, if someone doesn't mean anything to us because they are on a screen, like this avatar of them, this digital footprint, I can still be kind. I can still find kindness. I can still find respect in these other people that are not connected to me in any sort of tangible way. And that's kind of extrapolating the message of the book to a bit of an extreme, but it's
Yeah.
still kind of the point, is like, it kind of doesn't matter what we are. No one knows what we are. You can still find like love and kindness
Mhm.
throughout that.
I hope people find that, because on the other extreme, people take the opportunity of not knowing this person, and because their avatars on the screen are being completely toxic and spreading hate as well at the same time. So I hope they
Oh
get
yeah.
the what you spread
Yes.
there.
Well, and at the same time, those avatars are the ones that maybe need to hear it. Maybe I don't know. There is a I think that journey to the digitization of the self is inherently dehumanizing,
Hmm.
and is inherently, uh, over time, making us, uh, just less kind, to see each other as objects. And so that's kind of what this story is touching on, is like this eternal, like, what makes a person and what makes them an object kind
Hmm.
of thing.
Hmm. Also, going back to the mask, I mean, because you wear a mask. I mean, you said we've talked about you being a performer, and you approach writing as a performer in a way. Being behind a mask, do you also approach your writing in do you think that maybe that informs the way that you write as well? And maybe you're
Oh,
more
it does,
open
a
than a lot of
hundred
other
percent.
writers, because people with a mask tend to be more open to say things that
Yes.
they maybe wouldn't say without a mask.
Yes, initially 100%. The reason, I wore the mask for a lot of reasons. I still do for a lot of reasons. I think there's artistic reasons, there's safety reasons. I have
Hmm.
stalkers and things. But
Yeah.
ultimately, um, the the power that you get from that, allows you to speak with an honesty that, is pretty beautiful. It's pretty incredible. And the early Tinglers, I absolutely would have written probably differently. Maybe I wouldn't have written them without the mask because when I first started writing, I was diagnosed with autism at 20-ish, 20 to 25, I would say. I can't even
Hmm.
remember. I would say 21 or 22 actually. But uh I didn't talk about it very much. And so this has
Right.
given me a space to talk about it. It's not something that, it just didn't come up, I guess. And I was also not out as a bisexual
Right.
man. And it's not that I was in the closet either. It's just it doesn't when you're bi, kind of doesn't come up that often, especially depending on your relationship status, who you are with, the gender that your partner is, all of these things.
Yeah.
It's very easy to just not mention it. And so I definitely think that without the mask, I don't know if I would have explored these things as much. So it really did help give me permission for that, for sure.
Brilliant. Um, I also want to talk about the couple of performance. I want to talk about performance and authenticity as well, which is something that is really talked a lot about in the book. Um, as you kind of exploring influencer culture, it kind of trains people to suppress genuine emotion, which is kind of what we've been talking about. Um, was one of the kind of the key reasons that you kind of sat down and write this book was the pressure to prioritize performance over actual authenticity was something that you really wanted to shine a light on and to maybe kind of make people realize that it's
I
we
think it
need
was
to.
something I wanted to meditate on. And maybe that's what makes this one a little different. Like I've talked about this before, I think maybe with you actually, is how I write message first and how that's like a thing where I think about like what is this book trying to say? And that
Yeah,
I kind of have these North
I think you said
Stars.
you like to go for a walk and kind of
Yeah.
suddenly you'll get
And
a kind of
I
an idea of
think
the
about
message that
like
you want to put into the book now.
yes, yes, and there's this conversation that you hear a lot with any artist, which is, are you writing for yourself? Are you writing for someone else? And then the other question is, do you write character first or do you write plot first?
Hmm.
And then different authors can kind of weigh in, and I always say I write message first. That is more important than the characters or the plot to me. That's when I'm working, that is my North Star. It's like, what gift do I want to give? And
I was quite curious. Do you actually think about whether you write for yourself or for your audience? Because a lot of people tend to write for themselves because they want to write what they believe is the
yes,
right story.
actually,
But
so to answer that,
before
to
writing,
answer that question, the answer I also I have a weird answer for both these. For the plot versus character, I say message. That's an unusual answer. And for someone else or myself, I have an unusual answer too, which is honestly neither. I write in a utilitarian sense. I just kind of do it. It is as instinctual as breathing, and that to some people that can kind of sound like a cop out, but it's really true. It's like when I wake up, I write. It is just the natural state. And I would say probably because I have been a creator my whole life. Technically it's a job, but it's like, I've never had like a day job. Since I was a child, I started making things and people started liking them, and
right?
this has just been my life. So I have existed in this state where it's like, if you can imagine anyone out there listening to, if you didn't have a job or anything, it was just like you wake up in the day and what do you do? I just create, I just make stuff. It's what I've done since I was 10 years old. And the thought of like, is this for me or is this for the audience? Legitimately never enters my mind. I would, and a good litmus test for this is like, would I write a book if I finished it, no one ever read it, and then I just burned it in a fire? Absolutely. It's just like this is my natural state. So it's kind of neither, actually.
Uh-huh. That's curious. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh-huh. Um, before I leave you, I've got to, of course, ask you about the main. But it's kind of a tagline on the book. It says, "Never meet your heroes." So I'm quite
Yes.
curious. As you've been in the business for like you said, you've been performing and you've been in the art business since you've even been able to kind of think for yourself. Was there anything specific in your life, any kind of encounter? Obviously, I don't no names to be mentioned, but
Yeah,
have you had were there any specific kind of encounters or situations or anything that's kind of happened to you that's kind of that
I am so
sparked
glad you
certain
asked
themes
this.
in this book?
I am so glad you asked this. I was not thinking of anything like that when I wrote it,
Uh-huh.
but I have been thinking a lot about it just because that's such a theme of the book. I was like, oh gosh, people are probably going to start asking that. There are a few that I will say um, are just, there's a few notable buckaroos that I have had encounters with that are not good, not good people. There's one in particular that has kind of haunted. You know, we all have our party stories, right? There's a buckaroo that old Chuck. We had a very bad encounter, and then recently, this buckaroo started a podcast, and I happened to listen to it, and I loved it. I was like, I love everything about this. This was great. And I will say our encounter in the past was nothing like they didn't do anything criminal or it was like to be blunt about it, they're a real asshole. That's what I'll
Right.
say. Like just a not a and um and so I heard them on this podcast and it was like this very interesting. I like forgave them or I was just like, you know what?
Right.
You seem great. I was like, we had a, decades ago, we had this interaction, and then I just hear now, like, I like everything you have to say, and like it was this weird thing, this one way, it was like this one way moment of grace between that they'll never know about. And then, gosh, and I was also thinking, what's interesting is that there are some people that now I'm to the point where there's a lot of people that don't know which side they know me on just on one side or the other. So I've had a
Right.
lot of people talk to me without this pink bag over my head and kind of talk trash about old Chuck that
Right.
I that I think is I actually love it. That is like so fun. I
Uh-huh.
find it to be I kind of feel bad for them honestly because I'm like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. I just want to, but then there's something inside of me that like, I'm like, oh, this is very fun. And
But
then,
are those people that you said that you get kind
yeah,
of you revered before meeting them?
yeah, a little bit, one of them, one of them, yes. But I thought it was great. I was at a party with this buckaroo. I have no idea how this came up, but they started talking about this author, Chuck Tingle.
Right.
And it was just, I just listened and nodded, and they had some choice words. And I thought it was very funny. I enjoyed that. But the really great one, and to kind of almost take a positive spin, um, there are people who have been incredibly kind to me in different businesses or different worlds, who have gone out of their way, not knowing that either they were like fans of mine or not knowing that I had some sort of like a power or sway in books or any other thing, that have been so kind to me when they didn't have to. And that honestly, way more than anyone kind of being rude with the mask has kind of been the hallmark, actually. There's a lot of folks. I was literally I will say one. I will say one of these because I was like, I know this is going to come up, so I'll just pick one to actually say their name because it's
Uh-huh.
kind, not. But without this mask, and I'm thinking because I just brought up that Superman thing. James Gunn, the director, who now is like, I mean, I have had I have had encounters with him when he had would owe me nothing
Right.
outside of this mask. One of the most incredibly kind, like all about the art, like real deal buckaroos ever. And just like, so there's things like that where it's just these people that either like are fans on one side or not the other, or that I've encountered. And when they're really kind, it's like I just love that. It's kind of fun to go around and see like, oh, actually, if you can go behind the scenes, sometimes there's a lot of kindness there. It's pretty great.
Yeah. No, but I mean, being able to go behind the scenes like you do because you have the mask and you can have the mask off, it must
Yes.
be, it's good to see that you can kind of take the criticism like water on a duck's back, which is
Oh,
not an easy
yes.
thing to do.
You know what? Here's another advantage of doing this for as long as I have. It does make it pretty easy. I was talking to some buds and they because I have a lot of author buds now. I didn't before, but now I have so many author friends. And reviews, like when reviews start coming in, like it's hard, right? You start getting all these, there's everyone's got an opinion, and um it just does not affect me at all. And we are talking about that, like why do I not care at all? And it's because I was getting dragged through the mud. I was getting scathing reviews when I was a child, so because I have been a creator my whole life, um it just does not bother me. You get torn apart in like an international publication under the age of 18, and like that, then it doesn't feel good, then it will
Yeah.
really kind of mess with you. But once you have that trial by fire, um it just does not bother you. Like it's very hard to describe how little I care about anything like that.
Uh-huh. So, but I mean, couple to that, but that must kind of go back to what we said earlier, that the decision to write art or to do whatever, to make whatever art you do for others or for yourself, I guess that is heavily related to that as well. No, the fact
Yeah,
that,
you know what,
if someone doesn't like it, you're fine with that.
that's very astute. Yeah, I never thought about that connection, but you're absolutely right. That's a big connection there. Is that it's I just don't I just don't care. It's like if someone likes it, they don't even it's not even that I don't care if someone likes it or hates it. I don't even care if they like read it or don't read it. Like I mean
Yeah.
I do, in the sense that like I understand enough in a practical sense that like if I sell a lot of books and if I get a lot of good reviews, then I can keep doing this. So there's a certain like practicality of
Sure.
like, yes, we all live in society and need to like pay bills and things. So like there's definitely a level where I'm like, yeah, I would prefer that. But as far as any sort of like existential, like deep need for any of that stuff, I just do not care.
Hmm. Yeah. But it's a shame because when like 20, 30 years ago, people used to, if someone didn't like a movie, people were fine with that. But if someone doesn't like a book or someone likes a book or they like a movie that you don't like, they'll take offense on that and they'll say they'll kind of post hate about
there's
you
there's
for liking
battle
something, which
lines
is very
drawn.
strange.
Well,
Yeah.
that's like, I mean, that we could do a whole other hour on that,
I
which
know.
is
Yeah.
just the idea of fandom and the idea of like, I, not even as a creator, but as a fan, someone being like, I am a fan of this, and if you don't like it, that is an offense to me.
Yeah.
I think is very interesting. I mean, I guess you know, people did do that. I always try to like take a step back and be like, I guess people did that with like bands and stuff in the
Mm.
70s maybe, or
Yeah.
so
But
it's not a new thing, but it has certainly reached a new potency.
yeah.
With the tools that we have, it's like we took what this little section of human nature and cranked it up
Uh-huh.
very, yeah.
Oh, but it's. I mean, I will name a name because I mean, I think I posted on Twitter or X that it is now a very short review of a Jennifer Lopez film that I didn't like. I just said I didn't like it. It just I didn't like it at all, and all the J Lo fans just jumped on me like I'd said I wanted her dead or something. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but no,
Well,
it's
you know
just an
what's
example.
interesting about that though is because it's X, right? I would not be surprised if a lot of those were not even people, if
Right.
a lot of those were bots,
But yeah,
because if there's certain keywords on there. I mean, I don't post on there anymore. I stopped posting on X, but as it evolved, as it kind of declined, I would notice there would just be names. If I would say a name, you get 10
yeah,
times the interactions, and they would be
yeah,
very opinionated,
yeah,
very
yeah.
opinionated. So it's hard to tell.
Uh-huh. Brilliant. Well, just before I let you go, talking of you being a performer, you love your book launch performances. So can you tell people watching where they can catch you and what you'll be doing to celebrate the launch?
Sure. Well, I mean, so lucky day or lucky day.
Lucky day.
No, that's last. What's funny is I just see it. I see it on your shelf behind you. I
Yeah.
love your setup back there. You have all the
That's a
books.
fantastic version of Chuck the Lucky Day, by the way. Yeah, this one from was it Black Crow Books with Titan?
Oh, with the
Fantastic
sprayed
version.
edge.
Yeah, with the sprayed
Yeah,
edges.
that's
Yeah,
really, really cool. No, with Fabulous Bodies coming out, I mean, I think of, I mean, life, all the world's a stage, just like Eddie says. So I do think of all existence as a performance. So my performance coming up is going to be this book coming out, and doing a lot of interviews talking about it, seeing the reaction, feeding off of that, existing, swirling together in this big, beautiful melting pot. And that book coming out, that is a performance upon the world. So if you're interested, everyone pre-order it. It comes out July 7th, I believe, and pre-orders are very important. And then
yeah,
I have about 12 little tour stops here, and we rent out theaters. You can go to chucktingle.com/tour, I
I
believe, and it
will.
has
I'll add a link below as well.
yeah,
Yep.
and I have those stops, and they sell out. I mean, gosh, we're getting like half of them are sold out. But
Yeah.
if there is a ticket in your city, they're a lot of fun. It's not what you would expect from an author event. We partner with bookstores to rent out big old theaters, and like it's kind of like a one-man show.
Mhm.
Maybe like a vaudeville or something. I don't know what you call it, but yeah, come on down.
And will we get to see you over the pond anytime soon? Because the UK love you as well.
I wish I would love that, because I mean, really, to be honest, uh, it's the publisher. I
Sure.
have a lot of international versions. I mean, Camp Damascus now is like, I think it's been licensed for like 9 or 10 translations. Like 5 of them have already come out. There's these translations that people are doing, and they are coming out. No one ever asks me to travel internationally to do these things. I
Mm.
would love to. I would absolutely love to go to the UK. That for in my younger years, I spent a lot of time there. There was like a month as a young buckaroo. I was living in a dang hotel in London. Some of the best memories of my life. Oh my gosh. I love it over there. And so uh I would really like it if I could. From the publisher, it just takes the demand. So I mean, if buckaroos want that, I suppose they could
Yeah.
tag the publisher in a post, or
I
you
know
know
exactly what I'm going to do when I jump off here. Yeah, yeah.
there you go. Or like sales too. Like if I sell well enough in the UK, then they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll bring them over. So that's
Well,
part of
yeah.
it too.
Yeah. So
So
we
yeah,
need to get those pre-orders in the UK as well as
get
soon as
those
possible.
pre-orders in,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
yeah, I would love to. It is a holds a very special place in my heart, and gosh, it's been a long. I haven't been there in a long time, and I
No,
would
I'm the
really.
same because I'm originally from the UK. I live in Spain now, in the north of Spain, in
Oh
Bilbao.
my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
I am friends with some Spanish buckaroos. The Spanish Camp Damascus, speaking of translations, just came out like a
That's
couple of
right.
weeks
Yeah,
ago.
was that was it? I can't remember who it was now that released it. Yeah, but no, right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they're really picking up some great. They've got some Philip Fracassi and quite a few authors.
Yes.
Horror authors are starting to get published over here quite a lot
So
now.
what
Yeah.
what uh what city are you in?
I'm in Bilbao, and then right on the north coast in Bilbao, right
Okay.
at the top.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, so great. Spain is I've been to Spain too. I love it there.
Hmm. Well,
Yes.
you need to get over here. There's some great book
There, yeah.
festivals
Well, the
over here
book
as well.
just came out. Bring me over. It's just say it's up to the publisher. I wish whenever people tag me like, come, why aren't you coming out? I say, I
Yeah.
would. If every single city was like, hey, Chuck, I'd say, all right, everyone, no plans for the year. I'm doing a 200-day tour across every city in the world. I would do it. It's just it's up to the publishers if they want to
Sure.
pay for it.
Well, listen, Chuck, thank you so much for your time. Like always, it's a pleasure to speak to you. And I
Oh
wish you
my
the
gosh,
best of
thank
luck.
you for
Not that you need
having
it,
me.
but I wish you the best of luck with the new book
Thank
and
you
the
so
tour.
much.
And I
Yes,
hope to
and
speak to you again sometime soon.
well, I mean, I'm putting out a book a year, so let's do it again
So
next
let's
year.
catch up again this time
Yes.
next year.
Yes.
All right. Thanks very much. Take care. Have a great day, sir.
Bye
All right.
bye.
All the best.